Do false teachers know that they're false teachers? I believe the answer is yes, but no, but yes. Let me explain. Hey, I'm Alex, and this is Cinco, a channel where I deconstruct my faith every time I open the Bible and use what I have learned to examine the world around me. If you want to know more detail about what I'm talking about, you can click this video over here. And please remember to give a thumbs up if you like this video. It really helps me out. Honestly, I don't think I ever discussed this question at church or heard a teacher speak on this specific question. And if you're one of those people that haven't either, chances are your mind, like mine, simply tried to put a conclusion together from the sermons about false teachers that was heard. So being completely honest with myself, I knew that I didn't have a full understanding about false teachers. Therefore, I didn't have a foolproof answer to this question because I hadn't studied scripture for myself. So when I first came to 1 Timothy chapter 4, some things stuck out to me that I hadn't thought of or noticed before, causing me to shift in my original answer since it was lacking in any direct scriptural evidence. Some will depart from the faith, paying attention to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons, by the hypocrisy of liars who are seared in their own conscience. You see, I grew up characterizing false teachers as obvious in their perversion of the gospel, like Benny Hinn or Kenneth Copeland. Their teachings are so evil that I could imagine them literally knowingly making a pact with the devil. I hear teachings of demons and the hypocrisy of liars and just assume that I'd be able to realize false teachers since demons are always so clearly evil. And by extension, I believed false teachers clearly knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew that they were distorting God's message of salvation so that they could enjoy earthly pleasures. Done! But then I started to think about people like Rob Bell. He was a solid preacher. His teachings were shared throughout most evangelical churches. But then he came out with this book called Love Wins that was heretical. And it just taught that, God's not really going to send people to hell. So you don't really need to worry about that. And wow, everybody was just amazed by and just confused by what had happened. It didn't seem like he was trying to hurt people or make lots of money. It just seemed like he was genuinely believing that he was helping people with this new teaching. He had no clue he had become a false teacher, someone led astray by deceitful spirits, causing them to unknowingly pervert the gospel. I'd kind of thought that him and other people had fallen victim and we should pity them and pray for them and try to help them. It was easy for me to condemn and hate the false teachers like Benny Hinn, but ones like Rob Bell I felt more sympathetic for and sad, even though their teachings were leading people away from God just as much as Kenneth Copeland's. All of these false teachers get their teachings from demonic sources. So then I kind of thought some of them do and then some of them don't, since there's a deceptive spirits leading people away. And then I remembered Todd White. I'd heard the name, but I became very familiar with him when recently he had renounced the health and wealth gospel and said that he had been victim of teaching that and he was repenting of it. And evangelicals were like, yeah, God has gotten a hold of the heart of a false teacher. And it didn't take Todd White but 1 week to start backpedaling slowly on what he had been saying. And he went back to his heretical teachings. While he did push away from he skimmed the fat on how much heresy he was teaching, he still was teaching heretical things that were going to still lead his congregation away from God. And that's where it all comes together under the umbrella of a seared conscience. Have you ever found yourself in a situation that you wondered how you got there? It's just one decision after another of bad decisions, and all of a sudden, you can't believe that you have done these things. You can't believe the trouble that you are now in. I've found myself so many times in this, especially in my youth, where I would have never in the beginning been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this sin, I'm gonna make this mistake. No, but it's just one little thing after another, and all of a sudden you're in a spot that you don't want to be in. It was only later that I realized that I was slowly searing my conscience, becoming numb to the bad decisions that I was making. This can happen to anybody with any type of subject: drugs, pornography, stealing. The list is endless. Mercy Me even had a song about this type of thing called A Slow Fade, because it doesn't just happen in one day, it happens over time. But the end result is a conscience that can no longer tell what is right or wrong. Whether you're a Christian or not, the more you resist God, the more seared your conscience gets. So yes, false teachers know what they're doing is wrong. Even unbelievers recognize what they're doing is wrong. But no, they might not fully understand what they're doing is wrong because, well, their conscience is seared now. But yes, because they willingly walked toward a seared conscience. So the fault is still on them. And they, at the very least, have to recognize that their ministry is controversial. And if they had any care for God's glory, they would truly study the Word and humble themselves before God to understand if what they are teaching is true or not, because their teachings are leading large amounts of people. But they're not looking for God's glory, they're looking for their own glory. But the big question is this the desire in our own hearts? I know that there are times when I don't have the correct desire in my heart, just like them. So all this doesn't only apply to becoming a false teacher, but also how many people begin to be followers of these perverted teachings of the gospel. For Christians, grieving the Spirit leads to resistance, and resistance leads to quenching of the Spirit. So I know I need to not be so quick to point the finger towards others when I should be reflecting on my own resistance towards God and possible perversions of the gospel that I'm accepting into my own life. But to go into any more detail about the followers of false teachers is too big of a thought for this conversation. And since I do like to think of these videos as conversations, please share your thoughts down below with me. Did I give you something to think about? Did you also change your perspective on this topic? What was something that caused you to think differently? Maybe you can help impact somebody else that's reading in the comments. Since you made it this far, you should probably consider subscribing because I think you like my videos and you might not want to miss out on the next one. But either way, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.